Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here in Connecticut. It is 3:35 a.m. It's very early. It's a cold, somewhat snowy morning here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Today I want to talk about the left. What I'll call, okay, we have what I call the cult of Trump, the Trump supporters, the people that support the current president. And we have people that see a big problem with the current administration. The people that want to see a change, want to see somebody else, a different, a change. We'll just leave it. We'll try to keep it broad. We'll call the left and the right. The right, of course, being the Trump supporters. Okay, what I see, what I started to ask myself yesterday is how sane, rational people that I know, family, friends, people around me, and me and other people, how we can see things so differently and be so sure of it and look at each other. Well, how can there be such a divide and such a difference in what the truth is? Such a difference in what good is, good and truth, and what is wrong and unjust. How can there be such a huge difference in people I grew up with, people that I've known my whole life? How can we see these subjects so differently, from completely different spectrums, from completely different ends? I started to think about this yesterday when one of my best friends at the gym that I've known for a long time, and who also goes to church, said that a lot of people that she goes to church with they look at the left, people like me, Democrats, as evil, as tools of the devil. Just point blank. Seriously. Now, I look at myself. I look at the compassion. I have compassion. The last thing I look. I know I'm not evil. I know in my heart I'm not evil. So that's wrong. um, and then even amongst my family members, or people on YouTube, like I said, I've given up Facebook. It's just pure, just nonsense on there. There's not even, neither side is providing any valid input. It's just back and forth nonsense. So I've given up on Facebook. But so I started asking myself, is one side, are both sides right? Can both sides be right? No, not really. Are both sides wrong? No, probably not. So I got it down to this, that more than likely, one side is more right, is more likely correct than the other side. That one side is seeing things more clearly than the other side. Right? Both sides can't be seeing everything clearly because there's just too big a difference in what we're seeing. So one I hate to call it sides, but one version has to be more correct than the other. I don't think they're both wrong. I don't think they're both right. So one has to be more, so I'm trying to level this down. So I start looking at the questions. Okay, how can there be such a big difference? I'll name some aspects of this, like Elizabeth Warren. I saw her on TV yesterday. So I specifically looked when she opened up to talk about the articles of impeachment, and I looked. I tried to take my bias down, my feelings down, everything down, and look at her. And is she being a bitch? Is she being crazy? And I didn't see that. I did not see that with my own eyes. I wasn't. So the other times when I looked at her, I wasn't looking through it as through rose-colored glasses, so to speak. I don't see what they see. I saw a woman. She started off with the history of the United States, which I thought was a good intro. Now that's bias, but she tried to make a case. She looked a little nervous. Her throat looked a little dry. I'm trying to be flat out objective. The way she spoke. She seemed to be slightly disorganized. A little overwhelmed, maybe. And then those are the critical things I would have to say about her. I'm trying to be critical. I'm trying to be objective. But is she crazy? Is she a bitch? I didn't see that. Other stuff. Okay, about the president's impeachment. There's a big question of him using his office, the Ukraine. Now, when you bring this up to Trump supporters, they'll say, well, Biden did something wrong. So I'll try to look at this objectively. I've looked into it, and everything shows that it's a questionable scenario having his son work there. But then I saw other things that balance it. And I've seen absolutely zero proof. On the other hand, I've seen plenty of proof that I'm not saying Trump's guilty, but I've seen plenty of proof that he could be charged. And there's a valid reason for this case, this court case, this impeachment. There's a valid reason for it. Now, on to him blocking justice, what's it called? Blocking the Congress, obstructing justice. To me, this can't be questioned. He told his own people not to go along with it. He held back evidence. Again, I can only see one side of that. He needs to answer for, he broke the law. He needs to answer for this. From the other side, I noticed there a lot of responses aren't, when I start questioning, a lot of responses are what I call whataboutism, which is just an excuse. It's just a distraction. When I see something about Trump, they'll say, well, what about Clinton? And that's not a valid, so I whenever I speak, I try never to bring that up in my conversations. It's a distraction. It's not an answer. It's not valid. I look at the sources, and with Trump supporters, or the right, as if you want to call it the right, almost all their sourcing comes from Fox News, Trump's Twitter feed, or other far right leaning sources, Facebook, far right evangelical sources. My sources, I look up everything, anything and everything, and then I try to make an assessment of the situation. I'll look on Fox News, I'll look on CNN, I'll look on the APP, Associated Press, as you guys know. So I try to get as much input as possible to make a valid decision. The other day, one of my family members, we couldn't believe we had that I support our two senators, Blumenthal and Chris Murphy. Now they've been some of the subjects they've talked about. Some of the sides they've been on, I haven't quite agreed with them, but overall, I'm happy with their performance. When I asked this family member, well, why don't you like them? It's the way they look, the way Blumenthal looks, and that Blumenthal's been around for a long time. That was the answer. That's all I got for an answer. Like I said, I'm trying to ask myself, how can the left and the right, the cult of Trump, and the people that want to change, how can we see things so differently? And there's been a few times where I presented facts, and family members, people around me have just broken down and said, you know what? We hired him to do this. We knew he was like this. This came up in a conversation about the Ukraine. And finally, it felt like the truth came out. It was like, well, we knew he was like this. We hired him to clean it up, to drain the swamp, and that's what he's doing. So in other words, they're not going to hold him accountable. It's like letting a mad dog loose to to randomly attack everybody in the neighborhood because there might be a robber amongst the neighborhood. So you're going to let a mad dog loose, and whoever he bites, he bites. That's just an analogy off the top of my head, but I don't think it's too far off. So I started asking myself this question: how can me and people right next to me, people I've loved, my family, my whole life, how can we see things so differently? Luckily, there's a lot of love between people like my mother and me, where we were totally divided, but there's still a lot of love there, and I'll say my point, and I'll say how I feel, and she'll say how I feel, but we'll laugh about it. We'll laugh about the division, and I'm glad that there's that's one of the few relationships that I can actually do that with. But I still wonder, how can we have such different opinions? Well, I read an article yesterday, and as usual, I questioned myself. Was that the right way to do a video? I don't know. I've never read a comment like that, and I kind of left it open ended. So I had a lot of questions. Should I, was that a good video or not? I'll have to look at I haven't looked at the comments yet, so I'm not sure. But anyway, the article was about immigrants and helping the homeless. And I noticed this too, that a lot of times Trump supporters will combine two different subjects together and link them together, blaming one on the other and not really providing any answers. Like with this, they have skewed facts about immigrants, that they're the source of disease and evil and everything. And why? And then they'll link it to homelessness in this country. Two completely different subjects. Homelessness here is not caused by immigrants. I think I could say that safely. People being homeless here is not being caused by people coming in from Mexico. No. So linking those two together is not a valid argument. Okay, using money or funds. Well, here's the problem: is when they say, well, why don't we use these funds for the homeless? They say that, but they don't do that. They don't. From what I see, Trump just continually cuts money for social programs, for outreach. I still have yet, for me personally, the jury's still out on how much help he's given to the opiate epidemic. I don't know if it's all talk. I've yet to see that. I'm surprised. I think he's been pressured. I think he works by pressure a lot of times and by his ego. And what'll get him votes? A usual politician. That's admittable. But, and again, I'll bring this subject up again. I've seen a post about linking addicts and Narcan to the price of diabetes medicine, and two different subjects. And then trying to blame it on the addicts and the Narcan. The real question is why Trump hasn't fulfilled his promise of lowering drug prices. It has nothing to do with the drug addict and the Narcan. I know there are several other examples where they link two different subjects together, blame one on the other, and to make to somehow create a point, and that's nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It's irrational. So this is what I've come up with this morning. Because what I was amazed with is the division. How can somebody that knows me my whole life basically say that I'm evil? Like in the gym yesterday. I know I'm not evil. When I look at families being divided, and I'll go back to this again. This was a defining moment for me when I saw Trump, and I'll say it again, when I saw him mocking the handicapped reporter. in front of the whole crowd with them laughing and jeering. That moment right there was a defining moment. This man is no good. There's no good in his heart. I couldn't believe that any human being would stand up and do that, let alone, a freaking somebody to be elected president. I can't. I'm still just amazed that somebody he could mock somebody born. I don't care if this reporter. I don't care what he said. This man, you don't make fun of a person. You don't criticize, mock a person that was born with birth defects. There's no good in that. That's just evil. I don't even want to call it evil because when you call something evil, you paint it with a very broad brush. Like yesterday, when this person called all Democrats, all liberals, evil or tools of Satan. I think it's a way to vilify your opponent, and I don't like doing that. Let me back up and say what Trump did was lacking any moral compassion, any teaching of good in any religion would not favor that. And again, Trump supporters of that side tend to pull themselves away from that. Well, I don't agree with that, but you know, that's one more or less point too. The ends justify the means with Trump supporters. That he's a lying, cheating, miserable son of a bitch, but he's our lying, cheating, miserable son of a bitch, and he's going to get the other lying, cheating, miserable sons of bitches. That's not. To me, that's not right. I'm not going to accept that. We deserve better. I believe we're all flawed, but there are good politicians. There are good people out there that should be elected. I'm not going to assume that all politicians are bad. All of this group is evil. No, I don't believe that. So overall, I'm not going to answer the question which side is right, but I think I've come up with some evidence. All right. That's all I have for today, or for now. I'll see you later. Have a good Thursday.